Like it's working. All right, I think we're live now. So we're going to wait about 15, 20 seconds, let everybody join in, make sure the stream is up and rolling, and then we'll get into our presentations.
Okay, we can see people joining.
Yeah, nice. It's always good to have people here, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see some people still joining, so. Just a few more seconds and we'll get going. All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again for our masterclass on test automation in the Microsoft Dynamics 365 world. Today we have our second webinar that we're doing in this 5-webinar series. And this one is a little bit more strategy-based than the previous one. This one's about making the right automation decisions. What, when, why are you testing? And we really want to try to define that today and make sure that everything is clear whenever you're stepping into the test automation world. I'm Jake Davis, and today I'm joined with Pavel Wozniak, who has been with X Plus and Executive Automats, working in test automation specifically for, I believe, about 7 years now.
Yeah, something around
6-7 years. And so happy to have him with us today. And he's going to walk us through a lot of the strategy. I know a lot of people that are joining are customers of Executive Automats test automation tool. And I think that he is a perfect person to have here today to help us understand what we're trying to do whenever we're doing testing. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started is this is live. You can find it. We also have our survey here trying to get to know us. We really like to know where people are reaching in from, where people are viewing from. So tell us where you're from and what your main concern or even main issue is when it comes to testing in Microsoft Dynamics. Let us know that, and we'll be happy to reach back out to you and let you know any answers we have to any questions you have or anything like that. So with that said, Pavel, I think we can go ahead and jump right in. We've got the agenda here. And so, of course, we're going to talk about, why we're going to test, automate testing. But then we're going to move on to the criteria for selecting tests that we're going to do and walk through, the next steps in your testing journey, more from a strategic point of view. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell me a little bit, Pavel, whenever we're talking about why automate testing, I think it's pretty obvious for most people, yeah? There's definitely benefits to automation anytime. But specifically, I think why automate testing is not just why do it for the benefits, but also why are we doing it in general? What is the purpose of this testing? So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and we can go through that aspect of it, yeah?
Yeah, so in general, we automate testing to verify our environment, right? In general, testing is done to verify expected results, the expected behavior of the application that we want to test. And why to automate? Because automation is much more efficient than the manual testing. It's more reliable, so you can rely on it, on the outcomes. It is different for manual testing, of course. The speed is much different, right? The execution speed with test automation can be done. You can run your regression within hours, not days or weeks even, like it is with the manual effort. Accuracy. This is what we have on the slide. So we briefly touch this. So manual testers, they can make mistakes. Everybody does mistakes. So people can can think even that they tested something, but in general they didn't, or they missed something. With the automated script, you kind of program everything, and once you created the test, you verify the test, it stays the same. It is the same test case, so you can run it again and again, and you always get the same results, right? Of course, costs. I don't think we need to to elaborate a lot on it. Of course, manual testers, we require a lot of time to hire manual testers to do the testing. With automation, once the job is done, then you don't need to pay for each hour. Maintenance is much easier with test automation. You just update the script. Very often we just need to change one thing within the test case, and you can run it. So yeah, there are many advantages of automated testing. Do you want to add some? Maybe?
Yeah, actually. So not just advantages of test automation, but we're talking about why to automate. Yeah. And it's really important to understand from what we've gathered in our 6-7 years of doing test automation for companies around the world. You need to define a very clear objective to what you're testing. Yeah. And so maybe talk a little bit about that point of it.
Yeah, so it is the same as well with manual testing. Yeah, for me personally, this is the first point when we have that any test project. For me, this is the first point to define why we are testing, why we make this whole effort, what is our objective. So how we will know that we tested well the environment, because we had customers that try to automate a lot of things at the very beginning, but they didn't know why they are doing that, why they are even testing, why they are creating scripts, and at the end they don't know why they make automation, because they don't know at all why they are testing. Yeah, so yeah, defining the objectives is really crucial, but not only the objectives, also the measurements, what we want to how we will verify that the objective was made.
Yeah. What are some of the types, different types of objectives you could possibly have? I'm thinking like there's performance testing, regression testing, UAT testing, that type of thing. Yeah. It's important to define that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for each type, we can have different objectives. So for functional tests, the very typical objective would be to check out if system meets the requirements for the system. So if we have a requirement to be able to post invoices, right?
Yep.
We are verifying if we run the process, if the invoice is posted. So this is very like the standard classic. But for different types of testing, it might be different. For end-to-end testing, we are not checking the single process. We are checking how different processes linked into the bigger scenario, if they work together. How the integration between different modules, how different modules, how different processes, they work together when we run the whole flow. So this would be the objective, to verify the integration between different processes for end-to-end. For other types, like unit testing, it might be the verification of some part of the code. If the code is if the logic in the code is correct, for instance. For performance, it might be something like that the response time is below some margin. Yeah, so this might be the objective. So for different types.
And these are different, like you can automate all of this, but you need to think about it in a slightly different fashion, yeah? And so performance testing is different than regression testing.
All those tests, they can be automated, but for each you need to know why you are taking this type of test and why you want to execute those tests.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Let's continue on with like criteria.
One more thing here.
Go ahead, yeah.
Because the setting the objective is one thing, and we mentioned that there is a metrics, right? How we will know that we verified the things. Yeah. So we need to make KPIs, basically KPIs for different types of testing. like for unit tests, it can be like 100% code is covered with test cases, for instance. This would be the KPI for us, and we can measure it in time. So we are at 60%, but we are aiming for 100. So for different types of testing, not only the objectives, but also how we will measure those objectives. This is important. For me, this is the first step for every testing project.
Setting up the KPIs, Establishing goals, setting up KPIs. Gotcha. All right, well, continue, man. The way you're talking, it sounds like you know what you're talking about, so don't let me slow you down. So as you move forward, so you've got your objectives defined, what type of test you're trying to perform. You've got KPIs established for that. What are we looking at after that?
What exactly we are going to test, so make the scope. And so the next thing would be to select what. So I guess the next point would be to answer the question what we will test, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing would be to define the scope.
Okay. And how do you find that out? This is something that, from my experience, what I've found is, of course, there's release management teams and people who know what the processes look like. But that's maybe where one challenge has always come in, is having people who have the business process knowledge, being able to share that and say, hey, this is an important process and here's what it looks like. And so who's involved in determining the scope and what is needed, maybe what's a small little challenge, or maybe we'll talk about that a little later.
So the person who usually is responsible to define the scope is the test manager. So this is his task, to define what should be tested. And the business people, they are like the knowledge source, how to exactly do things within the dynamics, right? We are in the dynamics world. For different applications, might be slightly different. But for dynamics, we work with the business, with SMEs, to get the knowledge how processes works. Because for dynamics world, ERP world, the processes they are our test cases, right? So that's why this is important to work with the business.
And so you need the business users or SMEs, business process owners, etc., to help transfer that knowledge into creating the scope. Nice. Perfect. Here, let me do this really quick.
But the project scope is not the list of test cases yet, right? Because for the project scope, we measure what processes we have, how many processes we have, but each process can be tested in various ways. You can test one process with the positive way, negative way. You can try to do edge cases as well. So defining the scope is getting the knowledge about the business processes in the company. So this is not yet the list of test cases. This is just our scope. What should be tested? We need to test those processes. And then we define the test cases out of it.
Gotcha. And so you get an overall picture, and then you say, okay, here are the test cases that help us probe this overall picture.
Exactly.
And that's the next step then, is the list of test cases, variants. You mentioned negative cases, edge cases. Just really quick, so this is something I have found people tend to forget to test, are negative test cases. Can you explain just briefly what a negative test is? I think this is good for people to just hear again.
So negative tests, the purpose of this test case is to check if the process will work if we put the something wrong to the process. Like
will an error pop up?
So exactly, we want to check if like the alerts or the business logic will work if we will break the rules.
So if I use USD instead of Euro, there would be something that would show up, and we're testing to see if that's actually happening.
Exactly. You're expecting the error. So with the negative test, your success means that you got the error. So when you get the error, your test case is successful. So we can, I think this is a very nice definition. So with negative testing, we are expecting something go wrong, and it must go wrong because this is the success for us.
a little backwards thinking, but it's kind of fun to go that way sometimes. So we've got scope, we've got a list of test cases, and this is the next thing is after you have the list of test cases, then is prioritization. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about impact on business here. Yeah. And so tell me, what are things that you've seen where it helps people to prioritize? How can that be done? Because, all right, priority, everything, right? We're supposed to test everything, right?
Yeah. So usually I'm using also the severity, the parameters, so we can have the priority and severity. But overall, the point here is to have the priorities defined. So one measure that can tell us what is important might be the frequency of executing the process. If one of the processes we know that this is executed a lot, this might be the indicator. Of course, the priorities might be different for the industries. For manufacturing, of course, production processes, those will be the most important. For retail, all the sales processes. So we take different things for the consideration to prioritize. So with industry, the frequency of process execution by the users in the system. We can ask business as well, like business architect, to help us in doing the prioritization. Also, sometimes we meet with customers and they know which processes are most
the ones
sensitive.
that cost money.
Which processes usually fail. So those might be as well a priority for the automation.
This is something that we talked about last time in the previous webinar, but another way to prioritize and help a business prioritize what they're doing is using the Executive Automats for Discovery tool. And this is actually, I think, a little example here just from the screenshot. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how we're doing that in combination with our test automation application. Using this Executive Automats for Discovery to help us identify. So a couple of points, actually. We talked about the need to have business people involved so they can relay the information, the knowledge of the processes for testing purposes. But we've also talked about prioritizing test cases. And EA for Discovery helps out with both of those aspects.
Yeah, with both of them. Because EA for Discovery observes our system, observes our dynamics.
Observes it how? Like, tell me, like, what is it? It's passive, yeah? It's something,
It works in the background. There is like a script that is working in the background. And this script registers what people are doing, what they are clicking, what they are typing, what forms they use in the system. So this application observes all of that. We lost the screen.
Oh, I didn't touch anything.
Okay,
there we go.
There we have it. Yeah, so it observes the whole application, what people do, how users behave in the system, and then it takes all this knowledge, run through the algorithms, our own algorithms, to find out what business processes are executed among all those activities.
Combines patterns together and then puts it into the processes as defined by Microsoft in their process.
Yes, we use official Microsoft process logbook as a like the comparison for what users do.
Yeah. And so we use that then. And so basically, instead of going to an SME and saying, hey, show us what this process looks like, and then we can automate that process with Executive Automats for test automation, instead of going to them, you can actually just say, hey, here's a process, and then go to them and say, hey, is that right? And they just kind of verify it.
Yeah. So it saves a lot of time. First, it saves the time of a SME who no longer needs to record the script or
spend time on a call.
Spend time on the calls. but it also saves time for a test manager, because the full scope is
in front
done.
Of his face,
it's done automatically in the background. We can see that. We can see which processes are executed the most, because we can see how many times different processes, business patterns, how often they are executed.
That's exactly what the next point is seeing the frequency and helping you determine what should be tested. And as you can see on the screen here is not only like the frequency of different processes and so forth, but how automatable this process is. On the far right, you see a little slide scale, and it's talking about how automatable it can be, right? So this is extremely helpful, and that's what we're using.
And the business just confirms that, all right, this is the right path of the process. Of course, we have many executions of a single process, of a single pattern, usually, right? So we need SME to tell us which one is the best of those executions. And then, of course, it can be taken by the tester to extend this test case a bit with the verifications, data sources, and the things. But the most important thing for the scoping is done almost automatically.
Yeah, nice. And without this, you have the traditional approach, and you're approaching your SMEs and you're approaching your business process owners, and you're saying, hey, show us what this process looks like.
Or the documentation.
Documentation is also.
But the thing is that this is not usual to have documentation these days.
That is quite rare. So, all right. So next, we're still talking about criteria for selecting the tests to automate, but there's some kind of pitfalls and so forth, some things to watch out for whenever you're testing. I think you really can talk about this a lot because you've been working with customers for a long time and seeing what you should kind of avoid.
So the first point is like from my first project, actually. So over automating tests. This is something which we done with
I know you're talking about.
on my first project. We together with a test manager, I wasn't the test manager there, we agreed to use the end-to-end approach only for the testing. So we created more than 1,000 end-to-end scripts. Later on, it happened that system changed a lot, so most of them they needed to be just removed and created from scratch.
Not just maintained, but like completely changed.
It was completely changed. That's the one thing. The other thing was that the execution took a lot of time, because running 1,000 scripts and 1,000 end-to-end scripts where you have a few scripts inside, it was taking a lot of time. And basically, if you took a detailed look on those end-to-ends, most of them, they were doing the same thing. So we were like having a lot of scripts which are not testing, actually, because we were doing copy-paste, very similar test cases with small differences. So over automating, this is something that we can see on early projects very often. Trying to automate the most complicated things, the most difficult ones, and it should be opposite. We should start with the most boring test cases, with the test cases that takes a time, but they can be very quickly automated. So from those we should start.
Take small victories. And there's a couple things that I've seen just working with customers, not just from the actual testing aspect, but how they interact with their management. Whenever they're able to take kind of small victories and take some smaller things and build up a foundation, you're able to get buy-in from the lower level and from management as well.
And get quicker the return from the investment.
You start seeing something. At least something's going. And so definitely start off more on the not necessarily simple side, but don't try to tackle everything all at once. Build your foundation and move from there.
And keep the snowballing approach, right?
Exactly. Next point we have here, neglecting test maintenance and continuous improvements. We just touched on that briefly. I said it's not maintaining, it's completely changing with this previous example you gave. But you must maintain your test cases, right? Like, tell us about what does maintaining a test case mean?
Maintaining the test case means that we should have test case up to date to the requirement. I may be a bit old-fashioned here because I usually follow this rule that every test case comes from the requirement, right? So if the requirement changes, then the test case should change as well, or we should at least check if we need to change the test case. And very often we can see that requirements are changing, and we leave tests as they are because, all right, when the cycle will come, we will update everything. I think this is not the good way. It's better to have continuous improvement and like a workflow approach. When we change the requirement, we should have a checkbox as well. Check the test case, verify the test case, maintenance the test case. But anyway, it is good to check the test cases once in a while. Just try to run them. Something could go wrong.
We'll definitely talk about that later, the testing cadence and so forth. It's critical to it. So you mentioned also continuous improvement and maintenance. So there's Microsoft One version, and so that comes on a schedule. But I think a lot of people oftentimes will really focus on one version, but they tend to also neglect not just maintaining test cases, but any new integrations that may come in, or if they've changed a provider for a certain specific thing. And so you also will need to maintain test cases if that happens,
Yeah, exactly. New features are coming out from Microsoft all the time. So we should also not only the single test cases, we should in general update our test plan with new things.
And continuous testing as well. We talked actually about lack of clear objectives earlier, kind of secondarily. We talked about making sure to define what your objective is. It is a performance test.
But to refer to my first project, why we automated those end-to-ends, thousands of end-to-ends.
Nice.
Because we didn't have any objective in it. We didn't know why we were doing that. It was my the first project. It was my first touch with test automation, and I think maybe not even the over automating was the failure here. The lack of objectives was the failure.
You over automated because there was a lack of objective.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, this is one that definitely. I might have put this one first, actually, but ignoring test environment needs. So this is something that, let's spend a second or two on this. What does it mean, ignoring test environment needs? What is a test environment? How is it different than a production environment? Why, what's happening whenever this problem occurs?
So the test environment, we can say it is our sandbox where we can play around, right? So ignoring the test environment needs, in most common things are just not updated environments, not updated data. We had it very often. So the cycle is coming. We need to test, but nobody checked if the update was actually done. And I even heard about situations where people executed scripts on the version which was already tested because. Even if the build to update the dynamics went through, at the end it happened that the environment wasn't updated. So we did the test cycle on the not updated environment.
Everything's good.
Everything fast, of course. So the getting updated environments, getting updated data. On the environment.
Settings on the environment.
As well, because in Dynamics you can just tick one checkbox and it changes how system will work. So to check this out, we encourage customers to have the smoke test. Before you do some huge regression execution, it's good to run few scripts which are checking the most important things that should be always up to date on the test environment.
And you can get an idea after testing those small, or not small, but fewer things, how everything else is working. Perfect. We've got inadequate skill sets, not integrating with CI/CD, poor communication across teams. to make sure we stay in our time frame here,
Yeah.
let's, inadequate skill sets, briefly, that's having the wrong people doing the wrong job, basically, yeah? And where do we see that most often? In my opinion, it's having an SME or even a business user doing testing, because they don't really care about testing, right? Like that's...
I would say more that the test manager is crucial here, because you can teach business users, you can teach other people in the company how to execute the test. But I would say an adequate skill set here, I would make a strong point on the test manager, because what I can see so far, very often as a test manager, we get people who are previously doing completely something different, but on the project they got the role of a test manager. So they never tested, but because there is a lack of resources, we just take one person and we say, hey, you will be the responsible for testing. So in this area, I would say that there is the lack of skill set very often.
Gotcha. So anything not integrating with CI/CD, poor communication across teams, excuse me.
Yeah, so not integrating with CI/CD, I would say that the smoke tests. We should run smoke tests for each changes to our environment, and integration with CI tools can help with that. So we run the build, and we always run the tests. So creating this workflow is really beneficial for communications across the teams. What to say? I guess this point is related to any kind of activities projects.
Any project, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, if you have any project experience, you probably understand about communication across teams and how important that is. I like this one. This is something I hear all the time is, when should you start test automation? Yeah, and I know your answer is exactly what's written on the screen, so you can go ahead and say it if you want.
Yeah, as early as possible, because tests, even automated scripts, they are not appearing automatically.
Exactly. There's background work behind it.
Yeah, there is a lot of things that we need to do just before we can run our first tests, our first scripts, even before we can even record our scripts. So in my opinion, we should start this automation projects as soon as it is possible. So very often when we have the implementation, then we implement different modules in a sequence. So we start with one module, then another. So in my opinion, if we have already implemented some part of the system, and we know that some processes they might change, but more or less they will stay as they are. This is the moment where we can start working on the automation, because we have something already to automate some test cases. And of course, the UATs, very often a good starting point might be the UATs, because users will need to run through the tests anyway. So with tools like executive automats, applications like executive automats, what is the difference? We just need to press record and do what we will do anyway.
Yeah,
it's what users will do anyway. So with just small amount of training, we can teach users how to record what they are doing during the UATs. So this is also a very nice starting point for the test automation.
Well, that's another point too, actually, is so with executive automats, you can create documentation. And so as soon as a process starts to formalize, you can start creating documentation for that. And that, that can be shared among the team and then used later for onboarding once things are permanent.
Yeah, exactly. So as early as possible, if we have any processes that can be automated, we should start thinking about getting the automation tool and starting the project.
One of my favorite things to mention too, because of Microsoft One version, is the next topic, which is when to run it, the right timing for test automation. So we talked about like when to start, but let's talk more about like a cadence. What does that look like? Is how often are you testing? Obviously you're testing all the time, but there's certain spikes in testing that happen. So when to run an execution, how does that look? Tell me.
Maybe when is not the best word here because we should have the synchronization. So if we know when the changes will come to the environment, we should find the right spots for the testing. So the objective here is not to test twice the same thing or to over test things. So we had those situations in the past that somebody executed scripts and then ISV got updated and they needed to re-execute the whole scope of tests. So it's not about which time is the best for running the test. It is about finding those sweet spots that we know that we can test as much as we can with one cycle, with one execution.
Yeah.
So
combining some things in.
We should have a timeline where we know when the deployment is done to our environment, when we will update the integrations, and find those spots to have a time to run to test as much as we can with single test run.
Yeah, and I know the release management aspect and the cadence is critical for testing because your system, your environment is constantly changing. And so trying, as you said, to maximize your full effort areas. That's a good thing to do it. Is there anything that you would want to add on the timing for automation?
No, I guess that the one version is usually the trigger. So if we follow the one version schedule, this will be also fine, right? As a starting point. But if we test a lot, it would be better to have our own timeline of deployment and then check the hotspots for testing.
Sure. I like this. Real world examples, yeah? So how do you maximize the value of test automation? It's not just about getting value out of test automation. It's a business world. We want to maximize everything. So I think you probably have some examples that really show everything that we just talked about being used together and creating as good as possible of a situation. So
yes, I think we touched on that. So already that we should have the objective. So in general, we should have some strategy to do the test automation. If we will start just automating scripts without any like the vision how it should look at the end, then usually we will fail. But if we have a strategy, we know what we are doing, then we can maximize the test automation value. And this snowball approach, I would say, this is really good way to maximize the value of the testing, because we are starting with automating the most boring, the most like stuff for our business that they don't want to do.
Free text invoice.
Free text invoice testing, my favorite process. So if we start small, for instance, this is really good way to have the ROI from the testing as soon as possible, because we can get rid of the most repetitive tasks.
That's a key, actually, and let's make sure to say that word out loud: repetitive. So criteria for selecting a test automation case, it's a repetitive case. So things that are being done all the time and it's very, very similar, of course, that's a very big thing for automation. And you'd be surprised how much, like these simple ones you're talking about, the boring things, as you mentioned, if you just knock those out of the way, it's really, you have a very solid foundation. I see here, I'm not familiar with this.
But to give you the opposite approach, we had customers that they were trying to start with the most difficult things. And one that's very often they don't know the application too well at the very beginning. This is the first thing. But if they want to do the difficult things at the first, they are very often spending like a month to get 2 or 3 complicated end-to-ends working, and they are spending days and weeks on doing that. and in the same time they could automate like 100 easy test cases that nobody likes to do.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Are any of this that you wanted to mention specifically that you have?
Yeah, so we have like a few examples from our customers from the projects they did. So Ada, this customer reduced the testing time by 50% since implementation of Executive Automate. So something that took 1 month now is taking like half of it to execute.
Yeah, I've seen very similar situations as well in my previous time, and 50%, that's not a shock at all. This one says 80%.
Test coverage achieved. Yeah, and that's a very decent outcome, because what we also should remember that not every test case can be automated. There are things that we will need to leave for manual tests. Sometimes we need to just look on something, how it looks, also how it feels to do the process, how it works with even on the performance side. So maybe the AI will make it happen that we will have like 100 coverage, and AI will have own eyes to look on things and stuff. So maybe this will change, but for now, for the standard tools, applications that we have on the market, 80% is really decent coverage.
I like how you said it doesn't have to be 100%. There's definitely things that you might not even just want to take the time to try to automate because it's not worth it. So that's good to see. This one, actually, I am familiar with this one a little bit. 4,000 automated scripts across 15 legal entities.
That's pretty big project.
And
so of course they didn't record it like for
exactly
4,000 because in most
you can
cases
copy and
clone, use other test cases like puzzles for different test cases. So if we automated scripts for one legal entity, it is really easy, at least with Executive Automate, to scale up to other legal entities.
If there's 100 for one legal entity, probably 80 of them will be compatible on the other one, and the others just slightly modified to keep working. That was a really nice success story. All right, next, comparison with RSAT and some other tools as well. First, we can talk about RSAT. I always enjoyed this conversation. I had a little joke is that people who had used RSAT, they ended up becoming our easiest and best customers. Because they knew automation was important, but they had used RSAT and then saw exactly.
I remember when RSAT was released, and
we were like, yay!
Many customers they were saying, hey, there is a free tool on the market. We don't need to purchase any tools because there is a standard for test automation. And they were coming back after some time because of the lack of functionalities mostly, right? The RSAT is a good tool for small projects, for little testing. If we want to do the smoke testing, for instance, I would use RSAT for that. But if your test plan is getting more complex and complex, then it's the small things that are irritating at the very beginning, they are snowballing into the real problems, and it's hard to maintain the test
to scale it and to maintain. Nearly impossible. However, it's a good place to get your feet wet. It's the shallow end of the pool. Whenever it comes to automation, it's free. Get in there, get your feet wet, and then get ready to move on to the deeper end of the pool. We have, excuse me, a couple other tools that are out there as far as test automation goes. Of course, we are Executive Automate, and so that's the tool that we use in our projects, and of course, we believe that it's the most useful tool. But we also know there are competitors out there, and so a couple that we know, there's LeapWork and TestSmart. And TestSmart, I believe, is more of kind of a platform based around services that you group together rather than just like an application.
In a slightly different way.
So maybe explain a little bit of these things and kind of what's some differences.
What are the differences? So LeapWork is they're also a good tool. The big advantage of it is that you can test a lot of things. For instance, you can test desktop apps. With Executive Automats, you cannot test desktop apps.
Executive Automats is only web-based application.
Yes, only web-based applications. So it is different for LeapWork. You can do that, but I wouldn't use LeapWork for complicated test plans as well, because you work with the graphic UI with LeapWork. So I remember test cases from our customers with even thousands of steps. And I can't even imagine how it would look in a LeapWork if you have 1,000 steps and you have this on a graphic. It might be complicated to maintain test case like this. There are the differences also in how the data works. In our case, I know that our DevOps integration is something that works really well, and our customers like it also over the LeapWork. And TestSmart is like you said, more the platform where TestSmart team can deliver test cases for you for your project. I don't know that much about it because I never had any occasion to try this out. But it's quite popular. I know that,
I was going to say, if anybody watching, they have experience with TestSmart or anything like that, let us know a little bit more about it, because Pavel described what's kind of the idea behind it is. But we really haven't had much experience with it. So feel free to let us know about that. Of course, the chat is open. You guys can put things in the chat. We're going to have a little bit of a QA session at the end as well. So we'll save a few minutes just to answer some questions and, of course, be in contact. So is there anything else to add on that aspect or anything else? Because now we are moving into kind of the QA session time. So maybe a little summary.
I think we answered why automation testing. So why to automate tests over the manual testing, and why to test at all. When as well. When to start test automation again as early as possible. When to run the tests. Run the tests if you can maximize the value of executed test cases, executed scripts. So these are the good time slots for running the test. What to test, then define your objectives, define your scope. And if
let's touch on that just briefly here. Is so defining objectives. I want to make sure to hammer this home, is because I did see this, and as you mentioned in your very first project, that the objectives weren't defined. Is it's not just the objective isn't just test everything or test this specific module or anything like that. It's more granular than that even. There can even be like smoke tests, sanity tests, regression tests, but there's also performance tests. There's load tests to see, like on Black Friday, if our system can handle it. And I did want to point that out, is I know that Microsoft, they say before you go live, they want you to verify that the specifications for your environment will meet your needs. And so they don't say you must do a load test or performance test, but if you don't and go live, and then it turns out that you need more power.
That is quite obvious from their side, because they need to kind of estimate what the resources are, right? So you start with the survey, you complete the survey, then Microsoft prepares some proposal for the architecture, and of course they don't want to just give you the proposal and that's it for you, and you cannot do anything with that. So they ask you to check, to verify how it works. But of course, it is difficult to gather like 300 people, 500 people at the same time.
So you need automation for that.
Doing something. So I would say for performance testing, the automation is the only option.
Just a performance testing project to verify, hey, this is what we need.
And the policy from Microsoft is that if they make the proposal and they ask you to verify this proposal, you should verify it. Because if you don't,
why not?
They will stay with this proposal.
Yeah.
And later on, if you will if you will need to have any changes, it is way more difficult to change the infrastructure, to do anything with the servers. And we have actually very nice information from one of the conferences that most of the problems reported to the fast track. So the supporting of Microsoft is about the performance. So we really encourage every implementation to do the performance testing, and do it with us, because EA
a lot of experience doing it.
just really well, and we have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, it's we've done a few projects.
A few.
Let's say that. Yeah. Awesome. So Q&A session. If you guys have anything that you want to put in the comments section in the chat here.
Also the feedback, right?
Yeah, and feedback on this also perfect. You can reach out to us. We really appreciate you joining us. We're going to have our next session coming up. I believe that's in 2 weeks, yeah? Yeah. So next week's national holiday. So in 2 weeks from now, we'll have our third session. We'll be back with Marek, I believe. And Pavel will join us for the fourth session. Definitely. Reach out, talk to us, ask us any questions that you have. We're going to stay on here for the next few minutes. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat here. Hopefully I can figure out how to find them in the chat. I think I've got it pulled up fine enough. And so, we'll hang out here for a second. Check out maybe on the YouTube as well. Oh, yeah. I always forget that we're live. Like, yeah.
Do we have anything on the chat here? No. No questions today.
Yeah, I'm not seeing too many questions popping in. I think you
shy audience.
Or you described everything perfectly. One of the two.
Yeah, so today we had this webinar more like the code review, strategic one with Marek. You will be with. You will go again more
granular, and show how we're actually doing it. Yeah, we do some demos in those. So yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it for today then, man.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, if you would like to know anything. Okay. We have anything.
Done. Yeah. Here, let me show this. There we go. That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, we are glad you enjoy. We are doing our best.
Yeah. And I know you, actually. So thank you. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure. All right, everybody. Really appreciate you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Of course, you're going to get all the information. You'll see it on LinkedIn. You'll see it in an email. Everybody's going to be letting you know when the next session's coming. And the next one will be a little bit more granular. It'll be Marek and I, who is on our testing team. And he'll be diving in and showing more about how to actually accomplish this strategy that Pavel has laid out. And then we'll revisit again with Pavel and talk a little more strategy and keep it going throughout this masterclass. So thanks, everybody, and enjoy your evening. Happy weekend. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.